Bonjour, monsieur, dames. No, this will be in English, because I've exhausted my French. I'm so excited to have Yannis here with us today. First of all, congratulations on the awards yesterday, which are really a testament to Ubisoft's commitment to gaming at the highest levels with social change, and I'm sure you must be enormously proud of the work of your teams, and you get to represent them here, so thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We quickly relayed that information to the teams and their website, so thank you.
Just to plug Yannis a little bit before we start our discussion, he's the head of Ubisoft's Canadian studios. They have 5,000 employees in Canada, in Montreal, Toronto, Quebec, Saguenay, and Winnipeg. And he became CEO there in 2006 at the age of 32.
That's right.
That is kind of incredible. You're a pre-millennial millennial, which is fantastic hope for the rest of us. And he has served as executive producer on Prince of Persia and developed so many of their great titles that we know and love, and we'll talk a little bit about today. I really want to start off by talking a little bit about what you do and how you see it. Right now, 2/3 of adults in America and Canada play video games, which is a stunning figure about its growth. We have found in the United States that people play for lots of reasons. 78% play for stress relief, 79% for mental stimulation. In Canada, 40% of video gamers believe it teaches them how to communicate better and work on teams, and more than half believe it helps in problem solving. So we're seeing that video games bring entertainment and joy and fun, but they do something else. Maybe tell us what you're trying to achieve and what you're hearing from your communities about the value of games beyond entertainment.
So, yeah, that's right. Those figures are true, and they're definitely telling us that playing video games is definitely more, it's not just for fun. Of course, having a fun experience comes with everything you said, stress relief and so on, but it has to bring something else than that. And we've put our thoughts on that. And in fact, we've been studying basic psychology for human needs, basic psychological needs. I'm not a psychologist myself, but from what I understand, and there are a plethora of studies about the human psychological needs, but quickly it all comes down to 3 basic needs. The need for everyone, whatever the activity, that's true for real life also. I mean, the need to feel competent, the need for autonomy, and the need for relatedness. So feeling competent is very important because it makes us feel good. There is an activity where we are challenged, and it challenges our abilities through an interface in a video game, for example. The beauty of the video game is that every 60 frames per second, we got a direct feedback on how well do we do in this challenge. And when we do well, because video games are made in such a way that the game design is well done, so we have quick feedback on how we do, we progress, we are in this state of flow. That is a fundamental need that is being fulfilled when we play video games. The need for autonomy is obvious also. We all want to be grown-ups. We all want to make our own decisions. This is also what inspired us to go for open-world games, where in open-world games, you are not anymore following what a designer wanted you to do at this exact moment in this exact map, following this map and before that other map that all the gamers would go through when they play the same game. In open world games, as you know, it's all about players' agenda. So you do the missions you want, in the order you want, you can stop them, revisit them, and go there and go back and so on. So this is a clear way to fulfill the autonomy needs. And finally, relatedness. Relatedness in a sense that you want to be important for another group of people, and you want to know that they are important to you and vice versa. So this is exactly what happens in a game such as Rainbow Six Siege, for example, where you team up with 4 players against another team of 5, defend, attack. Those relationships, those communication skills, those leadership skills that happens in a game like Rainbow Six really fulfill that need. And back to your question, I think video games can very efficiently fulfill those 3 basic psychological needs that help human being just feel better and just feel good about themselves in the community they live into. So all our games are tackling those 3 needs, in fact, and I think it's good. It's good for players and for people.
Yeah, on that third point, it's interesting. In some of our research, we have found that 65% of players play together, either in person together or online. And there's a lot of talk about how video games build communities. And so it's interesting when you talk about that relatedness. There is a need for community.
Absolutely.
And video games are really creating new social connections around a topic or content that people love passionately. And it introduces you to people you may never meet in another walk of life. But through video games, you're able to connect.
Yeah, totally. There's the community in the game per se, but there was another figure, I think it was from you guys, saying that at least in Canada, if I remember well, 70% of parents are actually playing with their kids. And it's normal when you look at the demographics. We now have, I'm the prime example of that. I have 2 kids, and they start to play, and their father, which me, has been raised with playing video games. So more and more video games will be part of the daily life. So it's cool to know that parents are playing with kids because you can take care of many different aspects that may not be suitable playing games, but it also a bonding phenomenon. So yeah, I think that happens, and it's great.
Yeah, one of the exciting things about being at Games for Change is learning about the different uses of video games. And we are increasingly seeing the use of video games as therapy, as treatment for things. We've seen in some studies that doctors are seeing impressive results in patients with Alzheimer's or with other ailments. And we're seeing that cancer patients, particularly kids, are learning about how the disease works through video games. You've got a game called Dig Rush that you've worked in partnership with Ambliotech that works on ocular disorders. Maybe share with us a little bit about the game and how that relationship developed and the impact that you've seen.
So the story behind that game is, or behind that prescription, is very interesting. In fact, it started a while ago when we were first hearing about serious gaming, and there is actually one guy back there in Montreal in the studio. His name is Mathieu Ferland, and he's a senior producer. He used to work on AAA games. He started the very first Splinter Cell actually back in 2002, and he wanted to explore what we could do leveraging the gamification of healthcare actually. So we had no clue at the time what would be the project or if there would be a project, but we decided to get closer to the healthcare industry in Montreal, and he seated on the board of MedTech, which is a consortium gathering healthcare companies and other actors in the sector to find innovative ways to tackle actually healthcare problem. And there was this company, Ambliotech, who associated with McGill University, and they wanted to try something that was fixing or helping the lazy eye thing, the amblyopia syndrome, and Mathieu, sat with those guys, and they quickly discovered that by playing a game called Dig Rush, so we took any 2D game that was actually in the works in the studio at that time. But by quickly playing with the way the frames are displayed, it was actually tremendously helping the exercise of the lazy eye. So the tests have been conducted, and the people who went through the treatment, which is basically playing the game is the treatment. They were seeing astonishing results on fixing this. So right now the game is not yet FDA approved. It's on the way, but to my knowledge, no, it's the first time ever a game is going through that process. So that's also why it takes time, because the use of technology in healthcare is one thing, but the fact that a video game is the treatment, so basically the doctor will write the prescription, play that game. That is very new, and I guess it will take time, but we're there. So yeah, that's the story.
That's astonishing, and it could be a breakthrough in so many regions where you can't access medical care so easily, and yet if you can get this video game, you've got this ability to reach people.
So it's also going to save a lot of money, because the other traditional treatment is surgery, or the patches, which is less interesting for the people suffering that disease. So yeah, it's cool.
That brings to mind, because you were just talking about how this came about and the ideas someone had. There's something in the mission of Ubisoft that allows a game like this to be developed, or a game like Assassin's Creed to be made into Assassin's Creed Discovery Tour. Tell us a little bit about that mission and that game, because you've got a game which is extremely profitable. No one thinks, oh, I can make a profitable educational game, and yet you're able to have a profitable game and yet create a mission around the game that's been lauded from an educational standpoint.
You're right. I understand that from an outside look, it's kind of special. It is also actually from within. So well, Yves Guillemot is our chairman and CEO of the whole Ubisoft group, and he has this mission for the company, which is to entertain and enrich people's life. So I think this is the starting point to everything we do in the company, and it trickles down even through all the management layers and to the teams where they get that. For example, the editorial team, which is working closely with Yves in France at HQ, they push the teams to do a lot of research on the worlds that we create in our games. Should it be Watch Dogs, Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, obviously, and so on. The goal is to make sure we immerse players as much as possible. So the attention to detail is actually totally insane. So, for example, when we're about to make a game like Watch Dogs 2 in San Francisco or Watch Dogs 1 in Chicago, we actually send the development team, a good chunk of the development team, let's say 20, 30 people, the core team, we send them to wherever the setting of the game is going to happen. So we send them to San Francisco, we send them to Chicago, and they spend time there doing research, art direction. What's the way of how do people there live? What's the culture? What's the industry? Are they into music? What's the feel? What's the vibe of the location? So that when they build the world, there is this consistency, this credibility that transpires into the runtime, and we think this helps people having a good time in the game. Now, back to your question, it takes between 2, 3, sometimes 4 years making a game, a AAA game for us. When you have a team doing such an insane work and they learn so many things, at some point when the game ships, it is, maybe I am retro-engineering this, I'm trying to explain what happens. But
I love, by the way, how he's doing it in French and translating it in English to us, which is impressive, right?
It is
video games.
It is normal to have the team saying, now that we've done that game, Assassin's Creed Origins in Egypt, now that we've been there, now that everything we know, we've recaptured the great library of Alexandria, we've been into the catacombs and so on. Wouldn't it be so cool to just remove the tension that comes with gameplay, remove the fighting, remove the AIs, and just have the players roaming free in that world so that they could learn what we went through when making the game? That was the sparkle, actually. And as a studio, when you have 400 people finishing their game, they basically deserve the right to do whatever they want at the end before embarking on another project. So we say, yeah, sure, go for that, do this, we'll allocate a budget and we'll see what happens. And there happens the Discovery Tour.
So you've got these historically accurate games that now double as learning tools, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, and because in the meantime, we've been approached by a lot of teachers asking us for how can they use Assassin's Creed to teach, Egypt or to teach Greece. So the next step, by the way, is to do the same Discovery Tour for our newest Assassin's Creed game in ancient Greece in September. And this time, we've also been able to ask people in between projects, and we use that project, Discovery Tour project, as a warm-up, as a training for people who are coming from another project and who will go on an Assassin's Creed game. And so that they will learn, in the meantime, they will learn the technology, they will learn the engine as they are building the Discovery Tour. So it's kind of a win-win situation for us.
Wow. Well, in order to be able to do that, you've got to be able to do the research and bring in the experts and really analyze it. But you also need people with technical proficiency.
Yeah.
Right? And I know there are lots of efforts with respect to STEM education. I know ESA Foundation's given out more than 350 scholarships to underrepresented groups. What are some of the things you're doing within Ubisoft to really generate more interest and develop and cultivate that next generation of video game developers?
Right, it's a good question, and it's always something that has been present or brought to our attention by the context and the environment we live in Montreal. So yes, we are a big studio. Yes, we are more than 3,700 people just in Montreal. We've been growing so fast that from the very early ages, we were in need for talent, and we were in need for institutions, schools, universities, colleges, to help the whole industry, not just ourselves, but to foster that talent. So back in 2003, we were thinking about maybe we should start a campus. And 2 years later, in 2005, we were having the Ubisoft campus in Montreal. It was an astonishing success for the following 5 years to bring junior people, but junior not in a sense that they don't know the tools, So they were very functional when it comes to time for them to join the production floors at the studio. Now, 15 years later, we always need functional people making video games, but the institutions have grown also and have put a lot of energy. So there are now a lot of training programs that are already part of the curriculums in the universities. What we were in need of is the very specialized skills for the top senior talent, because our industry is becoming very, very specialized. So we've been always thinking about that. How can we make sure there is a creative perennial in Montreal, in Quebec, And 2 years ago, last year, I don't remember, at some point we were working with people in Montreal, strategic partner, and they were showing me this statistic that is absolutely frightening. Dell and the industry of the future says that in 2030, 85% of the jobs in 2030 have not yet been invented. When you think about that stat, it's like, oh my God, that's in 11 years. And 11 years is exactly what it takes from a young person who enters the educational path to getting out just before university. So how do we make sure that in those 11, 12 years, we teach them skills for jobs that we don't know what they are? So we were pretty cocky in a way, pretending that we don't know how to train people. We don't know how, we're not teachers, but we may know what skills are going to be required. We're talking about computational thinking. We're talking about maths, of course. We're talking about creativity. We're talking about team working. We're talking about empathy. All that is going to be very important in 2030 and beyond that. So what we've decided to do is to go big with Ubisoft Education. I know it sounds big, but it's because the stakes are very high. So we decided to use our brand, which is actually quite big in Quebec, and to go bold and say, we are going to make sure that the kids are going to learn those skills from now on until 2030. Of course, as I said, we're not teachers, and we certainly don't pretend that we can do better than them. We need them. So we partner with local experts, such as amazing people, such as Kate Arthur, Kids Code Jeunesse, or Gabriel Brun-Lopez, Fusion Jeunesse, Technovation, Technoscience, all people who are experts in the field of bringing those skills in the classroom from very early age, even elementary school, up to universities. From scratch prototyping up to our university concours, I don't have the word in English, sorry, where we give scholarship to teams of everywhere in all the universities in Quebec. So this is our way of making sure that there is a creative perennial for this industry in Quebec.
Now, of course, bringing more people along also means trying to add different people from various communities. And Ubisoft, again, has been really thoughtful in its leadership about how to bring more people in. We've seen in the United States, for example, since 2009, we've had double the number of women entering the video game workforce. Not enough, but it's growing. What are your efforts in terms of diversity, in terms of women in tech, in your studio to try to promote a more diverse culture, given the kinds of games you put out that do require that diverse thinking?
Yeah. So first of all, you're right. I think the industry right now stands between 15 to 20% of women, and it's way too low. As a group worldwide, I think we stand at 21% women. We in the Canadian studios have given the objective, pretty ambitious objective, to be 30% women by 2025. So if it first starts with the head recognizing that it's a need, and we need to strongly say and assume that with more diversity comes more creativity. I strongly believe in that. It also comes more efficiency, productivity in teams. It's proven. That's not the point. The point is, how do we make sure that this happens? So we obviously start with the obvious, which is first we have to train our managers on unconscious biases that can happen. And then we have to trickle down on every little things that maybe we don't talk well in our job search or in our job descriptions. Or maybe we talk in our job descriptions in a way that, for some reason, it's not appealing for women. We're working on that. Also, we're partnering with the Greater Montreal Chamber of Commerce to give more visibility to strong leadership women in leadership position in our industry, and we are supporting an initiative with the Greater Montreal Chamber of Commerce called Women in Tech, where we give this visibility, and there's a whole initiative where those young entrepreneurs go to the Silicon Valley and have meetings over there and see what happens, making sure that those fantastic leaders are visible, and making sure also that in our hierarchy there are more and more women in leadership positions, because that helps. There will also be a lot of work with the universities themselves, because at some point, as a recruiter, we get what comes out of the university. So working with universities, especially those in technological fields, I'm thinking about École Polytechnique, making sure that those fields are appealing to them, so that in the end we see this percentage grow.
Yeah. Another big thing we've seen publicized more this year, although it's been happening for some time, is the work to increase accessibility. During our Super Bowl this year, which I know plays in Canada, there is a very famous commercial by Microsoft on the Xbox Adaptive Controller, which really opens up opportunities for people with different accessibility needs to play in the game. What's happening on the software side from your perspective to increase accessibility?
So last year the Communication and Video Accessibility Act was in effect. So it was a good path to follow. But we really wanted to go beyond that. The problem is that we quickly realized we didn't know how to do that. So of course, doing the obvious thing is actually gathering a group of people and just thinking about this issue. And I don't remember exactly how this came up, but there was this idea of we should do a workshop with people who are actually suffering from disabilities, and we tag that nothing for them without them. Just to go the extra mile in terms of what can be done in terms of accessibility. So we had this workshop with 4 development teams and 4 people, advocate / disabled people, and that workshop was absolutely fantastic, because it was super concrete in terms of how do we make sure that the games are more accessible. It's not just about, sure, put some text here because some people can't hear. No, it was, okay, you want some more text, but at what moment? What size, what font, what size of the font? Where do we place the font? At what timing? When do we tell on, off in terms of the option? All those things. Now multiply that by all the 50 other features that require an accessibility work, and this is the work that is being done. Now we are committed, starting last year actually, to make sure that all our games have at least basic accessibility features coming from Ubisoft.
Yeah. One last thing I'd love to ask about, because it made the news in a very heartfelt way. We all saw the tragic fire of the Notre Dame Cathedral, and Ubisoft came out to help very quickly and in very unique ways. Maybe you might share a little bit about what Ubisoft is doing for Notre Dame.
Yeah, well, so when this tragedy happened, actually when it happened, it's not even funny, but it's weird. The company was gathering all its leadership in Paris, the 300 people of everywhere in across all the Ubisoft studios and subsidiaries in outside of Paris. So we were having fun, discussing. It was late at night, and suddenly, boom, the news broke, and we're like, and we could feel the humane tragedy within everyone's, reaction, not just from the French ones, but also because there were a lot of international people. So it was rallying us at the same time around this incredible event. So of course, corporate Ubisoft, made a donation of I think it's 500,000 euros to help for the reconstruction. But of course, because of Assassin's Creed Unity and because of everything I explained earlier in terms of researching the locations and so on, it is true that we had recreated Notre Dame in incredible details. Now that being said, we did add the flesh, although it was not there at the time, but of course we take some liberty. But it has been done in such an incredible, detailed way that we've been asked by people within the industry to help and provide the model to the architects or to whoever is going to do whatever they want with that. So of course we will do if we are asked officially. But what we also wanted to do is to make sure that everyone has a fond memory or remembrance, or at least could be emerge into this fantastic space of peace. So we gave the game out for free for 1 week, I think, so that people can explore what it is, Notre Dame. And for people who never went there, maybe, but heard about Notre Dame because of the fire. So this was our way to share what is precious for French people, and not only French people. I think Notre Dame was one of the first, top 3 visited monument. So yeah, I personally bought the game and revisited Notre Dame after that. So I'm sure a lot of people did that also. But yeah, it's the kind of thing. Of course, you do that.
Well, it's not of course. It should be noted, and we thank Ubisoft for its leadership, not only in being a fantastic game maker that bring us to all these new worlds, some of which are fiction-based and fantasy, and some of which are fact, but also for your leadership in really creating game-changing games that help educate, bring more people into the game, and help us to aspire to something that can be fun, profitable, but also transformative. So, merci bien.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay.
Merci, Stan.
Thank you, everyone.
Merci. Merci.